You'll notice the words that I used. I used aspirations rather than problems. I used the words of engage rather than enable. I used the words of abundance rather than scarcity. Those are all happy words. Okay? These are words that are filled with hope, that people can feel and see, maybe we can do this.
Hey everyone, it's Hildy, and this is the Creating the Future podcast. I'm glad you've joined us here today. This is a place for us to explore what really creates social change. What will actually create the healthy, joyful future we all want to live in? And importantly, for the moment we're all experiencing right now, what will help people step into their power to create that future? I'm so happy that Debra Jacobs has joined us for the podcast today. Debra is the president and CEO of the Patterson Foundation in Sarasota, Florida, where she champions the cause of creative collaboration. Under Debra's leadership, the foundation has worked with a wide variety of partners to accelerate positive change in their region. Given Debra's history in philanthropy and her focus on connection and possibility, it is my joy to welcome Debra Jacobs to the podcast today. Welcome, Debra, to the podcast. I always look forward to our conversations.
Well, I have to say that I happily anticipate them, and I'm energized as we go through them. So let's hope that we have that same thing happening today.
Well, in all the years I've known you, it's never not been that way. So I think we're good. I think we're good. Could you tell our listeners just a little bit about what is it in your life that made you so passionate about the work that you're doing? Because the work you're doing is fascinating. I would get passionate about it. But what is it in your life that led you into the social change arena?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important for each one of us as humans to understand and embrace the reality that life is a series of chapters. And it's important for every human to understand, what chapter am I in right now? Because I can't go back to the chapter that's no longer there. And I really don't know what the next chapter will be. I sometimes don't even know how long my current chapter it can be. And when we think about chapters, it can be in terms of your personal lifestyle, when you're single, when you become with a partner, when you may have children entering into your life. Those are different chapters. There's the wealth accumulation years. There's the wealth distribution years. So understanding where we are in our life's book of chapters is very important. I have been blessed to work in some vibrant chapters and smart enough to know, keep what I learned in those and not let that disappear, but maybe carry them forth into the next chapter. We often say at the Patterson Foundation that each human is a cookie jar. And as a human, as a cookie jar, inside that cookie jar, we have values, we have experiences, we have expertise. And Hildy, you know what the sad part is? Humans keep the lid on their cookie jar. And if you keep all your cookies inside your cookie jar and you keep that lid in, this isn't a test question, but what happens to those cookies when they're staying in that jar all the time? They get
stale.
They get stale. So we try to demonstrate about, let's take off the lid of our cookie jar, share those values, experiences, and expertise that we have. And as we do that, say to others, so what do you got inside your cookie jar? All right. So I think that's when you think about creating the future, which is your passion point in life, we can only do it with others and weaving what you taught me a long time ago about the phrase collective enoughness. We actually like to live in the land of collective abundance. So enoughness is good, but when we really share our cookies well, we discover that we are in collective abundance. So where did mine come from? It's a series of chapters and opportunities, doors opened. And I was fortunate enough to walk through them. I do think that's important for every one of your listeners to remember is what's your 5-year plan? What's your 3-year plan? What's your goal? And it's good to have aspirations. And I use aspirations because they're hopeful, they're what's possible type of things. But the reality is life happens. Life happens from the medical universe interfering with us to opportunities that who would have thought, where did that come from? And it was because we showed up with a mindset of possibility. When we have a mindset of possibility, that's when cool stuff can happen and we don't get stuck in where we are. I don't think there was a particular day or year that it happened, but I just learned over time, part of my role is helping people get that lid off their cookie jar and what can we do together. I'm going to go back to things I learned from you, 2 critical questions. Who else cares and what's possible? If we just walk around all the time saying those 2 things, there's hope. There's actionable things come out of that. So I think it's reminding ourselves this isn't rocket science, but it is a lot of art and science blended together.
I always love your analogies.
The key to an analogy is, did it stick?
Oh,
Or it
well,
doesn't do any good if we're brilliant when we said it, but did it stick?
sometimes they don't stick for long, but they land, and that's really, really helpful. And your description is just segueing right into the question at the heart of this podcast. When you see change happening in the world, what do you see undergirding that change? What are the factors that contribute to change? I know that the Patterson Foundation and you at the head have been focusing on that question forever, just exploring what is it that is supporting change. What have you found?
Well, instantly when I hear the change word, it's change happens at the speed of trust.
Yep.
Change doesn't just happen because the rule book came out. That might be a transactional thing that happens. But when we think about community change, change only happens when people trust each other.
Yeah.
Because the barriers come up, we each hunker down. So that's kind of like this guiding principle up there on change happens at the speed of trust. But there's a few things that are in our DNA that we do it. One has to come from a place of not the problems, not the issues, but the aspirations and the possibilities. Because when you come to a conversation or a situation from the what's wrong, it's amazing how quickly everybody knows exactly what's wrong and what needs to be done. And if that was the case, wouldn't it be done? But for some reason, it's not being done. Because we're stuck in our, whether it's our ideologies, our processes, our structures that keep us in what we are used to. So when we can shift conversations into what's possible, what do we all want, then as we start working on it and we start tussling, because I don't really like your idea, I like my idea, then we can say, wait, but didn't we want all kids to be able to read? So let's not lose that North Star. Yeah. So change happens when we are agreed on our aspirations. That's one of the tenets. Another tenet, focus on those aspirations instead of the issues, all right? Another thing that is really deep in terms of how change happens is when we work with others to engage people rather than enable people. Now you kind of go, but Deborah, enable's a good word. We're enabling people to do things. I use enable from this perspective that if we enable you, it's kind of in the Alcoholics Anonymous type of thing. Mm-hmm. When I enable you that drink is okay just because you need a drink, but take it into life now. Oftentimes you may be in an unfortunate situation. There's all kinds of books on toxic charity or arriving with the answer that keeps you in your place instead of allowing you the opportunity to open the doors. And I'm going back into the what have you got? What can you bring to the party so that we can do something together? So it's that engaging people rather than, okay, well, no, you are those people. And that's what those people do.
Yep.
Third, we brushed on it a little bit. The world lives in a state of scarcity. There's not enough money. There's not enough time. There's not enough people. And we have learned that when we create a space for people to bring their cookies, we find out that there's more than enough. We just never really paid attention to that. So moving into that abundance mindset, you'll notice the words that I used aspirations rather than problems. I use the words of engage rather than enable. I use the words of abundance rather than scarcity. Those are all happy words. Okay? These are words that are filled with hope that if people can feel and see, maybe we can do this. So change happens when we have ways we think about how people and discussions can happen.
Wonderful. I'm thinking about the whole concept of sharing their cookies, sharing their stories. When I am keynoting a group, I will have them spend time getting to know each other. So if I've got an hour, there's 10 minutes of that they're going to spend getting to know each other. And what's fun for me is 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, I'll ask the question, how many of you know the person you just introduced yourself to better than you know the people on your board? And the number of hands that go up over and over again, that whole, we can't trust each other if we don't know each other. We can't engage with people if we're not sharing stories. It's the stories. Those are the cookies.
Well, to your point, we're programmed, I don't know if that's the right word, but we are often into, come on, we got to get going. We got to get stuff done. And if we leap into the action and don't take time back here to get acquainted and know where we come from and how we think about things, when is it you're going to do that? Yep. All right. You can't do it midstream. Your practice of doing it right from the beginning, of getting to know each other. Every time I've ever had a conversation with you, you'll start it off with a question such as, so what's awesome in your life right now? And that opens up the doors for a little glimpse into who I am as a person. We at the Patterson Foundation, every meeting that we have, we start with the question of the day. It can be something that's a serious question, or it could be what's your favorite flavor of ice cream, or it could be what's your most memorable childhood memory from the summer. But you get to know people. Those questions of the day goes fast, but it's amazing how afterwards the conversations will percolate and continue. So taking time to know each other as humans will propel the work.
Oh, yeah. And we don't take the time up front, then we slog through. We haven't built trust. We haven't asked questions. We haven't gotten to know each other. And when things fall apart, it's always because of the people. We can blame a computer, but it's not the computer's fault. It's how we're interacting with the computer. I don't know if you remember way back when we first started Creating the Future and we first had a board. And we started out by asking, what's going on in your life? These are new people who've never met each other, and we're on Zoom. We're a global organization, so our people are everywhere. They wouldn't have bumped into each other in the supermarket. And so we started with, let's just take 10, 15 minutes and spend some time. And because that was the pattern, and because our discussions, you've been at our board meetings, are so generative, our board said, you know what, meeting for an hour isn't enough. We'd like to meet for 90 minutes. And then when we started to get into it, they said, you know what, meeting for 90 minutes isn't enough. We'd like to meet for 2 hours. And it just always makes me laugh because I have talked to so many board members and I've asked, what's the best thing you've accomplished in the past year? And they tell me, we got our meeting down to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why don't you just not show up? Why don't you just not have a meeting? But that whole piece of taking the time to talk with each other about meaningful things, to share what's going on in our lives. I had somebody ask me a couple of months ago, they were interviewing me about the way our board works at Creating the Future. And they said, what do you think is different? And the thing that came to mind immediately was our board members love each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing what happens with human relationships.
Isn't it?
I know this is not the topic of our discussion today, but I can sneak it in, is the whole concept. 2 points I have on boards is boards do important work, and they have to enjoy, have fun as they do it, or they will not be as successful. That's one of my theories, concepts, as observational concepts. The other is when we think about the different things a board can do, generative work, imagining, thinking forward, what's possible, strategic work, how are we going to get things done, and then the tactical work. Okay, we got to have 2 audits and 3 expense reports. But the number of times people will slip into major on tactical when you got to make sure generative and strategic is part of it. You can't not have tactical. But anyway, that's not why we're here today.
Well, I think that it is, because I think what you're talking about is getting any group together and convening any group. There has to be that blend, because if it's just tactical, then frequently what winds up happening is it's somebody else making the decisions, and that group is just doing the tactics, but they are leaving the good stuff, the strategy, the exciting stuff to somebody else. But I think it makes a big difference in any kind of conversation, Deborah.
Well, and that's part of that engage thing. People have to own it. So how do we help people own it? It's their future they're creating. So give them the opportunity to own it and not tell them what their future should be.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Do you have a story you can share, and an example you can share of bringing out the cookies out of people?
Yeah, actually, that's what we're supposed to do all the time. But I'm going to use something else that people get frustrated with when things don't work in terms of partnering. You know, we hear partnering all the, we're going to partner, we're going to collaborate, and some days when people are on their collaboration kick, and I'm wondering, is it smoke and mirrors? Is it authentic? I'll say something a little snarky. So at the end, you can edit this out. But collaboration is the unnatural act between adults who didn't want to do it in the first place. Okay. But because it's hard, it's so much easier to just do it by myself. I'm smart. I know how to do this. I don't need other people to tell me how to do it. And then we waste time, blah, 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 blah. But we got to keep remembering, no, you can't do anything alone. So we have to figure out how to make collaboration and partnering really work. So we have observed that when people go, oh, let's partner on this, or let's work on this, or let's create this fund, or whatever it is, we call it LWRCC. Is there alignment with LWRCC? Leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. And if I can take just a quickie on each one of them to talk about it, because when we're going to work with others, when the partnering or collaboration isn't going well, I challenge everyone. It's one of those 5 reasons why it didn't. So let's dive in a little bit on what works and what doesn't work. So leadership, it's not who's in charge. It's that the leaders who are in this collaborative, in this partnership, all are aligned around those aspirations. What's our why? So are we aligned on the why of leadership? Are we aligned on the why of leadership? Then willingness. Am I willing to work with you? Leadership can say all day long what the aspiration is, but are we really willing? Are we going to show up? Are we going to be there? Are we going to bring our cookies? Are we going to allow for change to occur? So that willingness. And people can talk a game, but it's how they behave that
Right.
explains the willingness. And no matter how willing you might be to collaborate or to partner working together, readiness.
Absolutely.
Are you in the midst of a federal audit? Did your executive director just have a medical crisis? Have you just had a natural disaster that's wrecked everything? Sometimes you're not ready, or you have to step back. So always assessing our readiness to keep moving the work together forward.
Yeah.
Then capacity. That gets back to that scarcity to abundance. Everybody's got something to bring to the party. So are you going to bring it to the party, and what is it? So that discovery part that you have, what is it that you say, I'm bringing this. I got the potato chips today, or whatever it is. So knowing the capacity, yes.
Yeah.
And then finally, culture.
Right.
Is our culture, in me, in my entity, do we want change? Or we're kind of happy over here the way it's always been?
Mm-hmm.
Because if there isn't an appetite for change in your culture, how many times have we heard culture trumps strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what the plan is if the culture isn't going to advance it. So this LWRCC is a simplistic little way to see, will this work or will this not? And actually, Hildy, it's not only an example of what I've seen work or not work in the social specter, but you can apply LWRCC to your family.
Sure.
If this particular vacation didn't go just the way you all wanted it to go, I bet we can find something in the LWRCC that didn't quite come together, all right, in there. I would challenge your listeners to think about, how can I test this LWRCC theory on anything I'm working on right now?
I'm curious, in leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, culture, where does values fit into that?
Oh, heavens. Okay. Actually, I think the values are woven in all of those. So I'm going to take values out here a little bit, because actually values are what drives the Patterson Foundation.
I know.
We have values that you'll actually hear a value mentioned randomly in our discussions. Yeah. So I do think, whether you call them values, because everybody has nomenclature. So values, guiding principles, whichever words anybody wants to use, that has to start at the heart, the DNA of a person and an organization. So knowing what your values are and being able to have those up as something, as a screen that you can put against when you're in a tough conversation, or when you're deciding whether or not to work on a particular thing, you got to go back and look at the values and see, are we supporting what our values are? Very important. But you got to live the values, just not write them and put them on the strategic plan. They got to show up on your wall, in your conversation. They got to show up on your website so that people can see them. Yeah. And actually, well, I haven't had this circumstance. Someday it'll happen. Someone will call me out, they should, on, well, I don't see where that is in your values. I'm fortunate so far that we have adhered to them, but we should always be able to defend our actions. Again, it's part of our why. Okay. Our guiding principles, our values undergird our why.
So it falls under the leadership part, but it also infuses into everything.
It really does.
If you're talking about sharing resources, there's a value in that. We always talk about values around here as what's important. That really what values state is what's the most important, this or that.
Well, and that goes to always know your why when you're making a decision, because someday you might get called on it. Someday you might have to look back on it. Always know your why when you're doing something. Yeah.
I want to get back to the abundance question, the enoughness and abundance question. you all have done some pretty remarkable things in terms of collective enoughness and sharing resources. I'm remembering a story you told me years ago about doing like story time in a laundromat.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We still do pop-up neighbor through laundry.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, so I got to go back up here. The Patterson Foundation strengthens in people, organizations, and communities in ways that foster wide participation around shared quality of life aspirations. So this wide participation, fostering wide participation, rather than giving grants to individual organizations, we work through initiatives that get into community working with so we can spread far and wide.
Yeah.
In the world of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, we call ours the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, family engagement is critical because parents care about their kids. They may not know about all the things they should do with their kids or what the resources are. Another saying we have is time is the non-renewable resource. So not wasting time, optimizing time, respecting time. So one of the ways to connect with asset limited families is those who go to laundromats.
You're meeting them where they are.
You go where people are. You don't sit behind your desk thinking you know the answer. And what happens when you do your laundry? You got to sit there for 45 minutes and then fold them for 45 minutes. So it's a great opportunity for conversation. And when you walk into your laundromat and someone is standing there welcoming you and saying, we are thrilled you're here today. For the next 4 hours, the Patterson Foundation is paying for everyone's washing, drying, and folding. And people are incredulous. Okay, right. Why would you do that? Well, because you're our neighbor. But now keep in mind, we also have a whole bunch of other community partners there because during those times washing and folding, you can now talk to the library, you can talk to the health department, you can talk to the Early Childhood Coalition. We always have a book nook. We have celebrities who are reading to kids. We have the All Face Food Bank who's distributing snack packs. Oh, there's the there's the fresh produce truck coming. Just a couple of takeaways from this, Hildy. In the world of those of us who are fortunate to have a washer and dryer at our disposal, don't think about how much it costs to do a load of laundry. Now it costs, I could put you on the spot and say, so Hildy, how much does it cost to go to the laundromat and do one load? Do you want to take a gander or do you want me to just tell you?
One load, I would guess, wash and dry is somewhere around $3.50, $4.
Well, it's probably around $8.
Wow.
Okay, so think about it. $8 is real money. Now, when we say to people, do you have any more laundry at home you'd like to bring in? People buzz home, come back on average 10 loads per family.
Wow.
Now, add that up. The other fun part about this is as people are doing their thing, we'll say, so what are you going to do with the money instead of doing it for your laundry? I think I'll buy chicken. Because my kids haven't had protein. Okay, I think I'll buy my mom's medicine. Things that we take for granted. But anyway, the power of pop-up, notice the name. It's not pop-up laundry. It's pop-up neighbor through laundry. And it's those relationships that we try to build. And it's not like we advertise because it's not a dependency thing, but it's a showing people that other people care about you.
I always love that story. And having all of those services there, just where people are hanging out anyway, either watching something on TV or reading a magazine, the kids are running around.
Yeah, and we have it for the kids. We got activities. So, yes, it turns into a joyous experience for everyone. We have no problem getting volunteers for Pop-Up Neighbor. No problems.
That's awesome. I'm also remembering a story you told me about a restaurant that was feeding kids.
Oh, dive into reading. Dive into reading. So this is back into the what assets you've got. So here we have the summer reading challenge where kids from asset limited families in the summer may have summer slide because their families do not have time to highly engage them in educational activities. And the research shows that if a child reads 6 books on their grade level over summer, they will not slide. They might advance. They might catch up. So we like to think about 5 external sectors: people, business, nonprofit, government, and media. In terms of when you were talking about community change, you got to have all the sectors involved. And a leading local restaurant who only serves dinner thought, wait, I got this whole restaurant during the day. I've got a lot of clients. So they said to their customers, we're going to start having in the summer kids come from camps or come from neighborhoods. We want to assign each one of them a mentor who will show them how to read a book together. And it's evolved into this, honestly. The kids end up with backpacks. The kids end up loving their mentors. The mentor gets sick. The mother says, my child's lost without their mentor. And it's literally sitting and eating together, having a relationship. And the restaurant throughout the year is collecting books to give to the kids, letting patrons know if you'd like to volunteer, you're welcome. And Anna Maria Oyster Bar, they won the National Restaurant Association Community Engagement Prize more than once. So it's a way, use your assets in a way, imagine what's possible. What's possible.
You know, we just don't think about what we have as assets. We're so trained to think about money. And what we need is what money buys us. We don't need the money if we can get what money buys us. And so much of that is around us all the time. Thinking, I've got a restaurant and it's closed most of the day. Those are community assets.
Absolutely. So again, it's creating spaces for people to discover what they hope for. And then, okay, what do we want to do? And who's got what to do it? So there's always a possibility.
Yeah. What new projects are you working on at the Patterson Foundation? I'm always eager to know what you all are working on because you're not a grant giving organization. You really dive in and use your assets to build strength in the community or to build upon the strength in the community. Yeah, so you're always doing fun stuff.
Well, it's hard stuff. I will say it's hard stuff. It's really hard.
Those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, but so I've talked a lot about the campaign for grade level reading. I'll veer a little bit into digital access for all. Okay. If people do not have affordable and accessible broadband, if you don't have a machine to do it, and if you don't know how to use the technology, you are not part of society. Now, during COVID, people notice, kids can't go to the library anymore because libraries are closed. Then, the Wi-Fi at McDonald's. And the schools were like, we can't teach them. I am mystified that after COVID, people think there is no digital divide. Okay? When in fact, there continues to be. For all ages. Yes. If you are an older adult and you do not have access to technology and the machines and the ability to use it, you can't get a doctor's appointment. You can't file for your benefit. So this issue of how are we as communities thinking about and acting in ways that help people get the access, get the machines, and get the literacy. An example of something that's in there, there's a whole bunch of layers, but this is kind of a novel one. It's training digital navigators who are embedded in nonprofit organizations to help staff and clients tap into those 3 resources. What are the plans out there that are affordable? Where can we get refurbished PCs? There's national access, but locally here we have the Suncoast Technology Users Group, which is a bunch of the most incredible men who like to, and it's men, sorry, that's who, I don't think they have any women yet. They like to refurbish PCs.
Right.
We do digital device donation drives. We work with Goodwill, who people donate stuff all day long.
Sure.
They work with Stug. Stug harvests what they want out of the donations.
What is
then
Stug?
Stug is Suncoast Technology Users Group.
Gotcha.
Okay, they're the bunch of guys who want those
Right.
computers, but they take, and then what they don't use goes back to Goodwill, and Goodwill then, I don't know what they do with them, but
Right.
they cashify them in some way. So I think this part about, if you do not have access and know how to use it, you're not part of society, and we're leaving you behind. So yes, asset limited families are a target, but it is amazing how many employees of businesses and nonprofits are struggling with digital access.
That's incredible.
Yeah. But it's not something we talk about. When was the last time everyone was talking about the digital access?
You're
thing?
right.
It
is assumed that it's over. You're right.
That it's over. So we're working on that. As the world continues to discover more and more disasters, it's the whole preparedness mindset. We don't have a mindset and policies that encourage preparedness. So we have an initiative called, it's funny, the acronym worked out, CPRR, but it's Community Preparedness, Response, and Resiliency. We're looking at what can we do to strengthen. Okay, every neighborhood should have a CERT, CERT, Community Emergency Response Team.
Sure.
It's an official term.
Yeah.
Do you think every neighborhood has a CERT? You know who has CERTs? Rich neighborhoods, not asset limited neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So that when a disaster hits, what don't you have? What can we do? Because now it's community fostering wide participation. We're working a lot on how can we build up the CERT network throughout our region, which is made up of humans who are
Right.
volunteers. So there's a whole back into forming relationships about, don't we want to care for each other?
And that emergency response, where you are located, the hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, I would say emergency response is pretty important.
It's very important. Yes. Yes. So we have to rely on each other. Yes. With a little bit of help.
If you had a bit of advice to our listeners on something practical that they can be doing that creates that sense of community that you are so about, what is some of the ideas you might share with our listeners?
Well, I'm going to start very, very basic. Okay. I want you to look outside of your door and make sure that you know who your neighbors are.
That is almost word for word. As one of our guests, Seth Kaplan, who wrote a book called Fragile Neighborhoods. And when I asked him this question, he literally said the same thing as you, Deborah. He said, stand outside, look to your right, look to your left. Do you know your neighbors?
Do you know your neighbors? Okay. And so get to know your neighbors because they chose that neighborhood for a reason. Why? Who lives there? What's their support network? What's your support network? Get to know each other. And, there's nothing like a nice 4th of July picnic that we could have in our neighbors. So get to know your neighbors. Also, I want to say for people who are still working, do you really know your colleagues? Mm-hmm. Because we live in an era right now, so many of our colleagues and neighbors too are taking care of children and parents, and in some instances, grandparents.
Yeah.
People talk about the sandwich generation that people are living in. I actually heard someone coin the phrase, we're in a panini generation. They're smashed because there's so much that people have to do. So get to know your colleagues. And just showing that you care about them as humans, you never know what's going to percolate.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We spend so much time, quote, getting down to business.
Yeah,
and
leaving
the
peeps.
Yeah, leaving the humanness out of it. And, studies have shown over and over and over again that the reason people leave jobs isn't necessarily the money. It's that they don't feel appreciated. They don't feel connected, and vice versa. The reason they stay isn't necessarily the money. The reason they stay is they feel connected. I don't want to leave these people.
Yeah.
That's the place I'd like to work.
We could give advice all day long, but let's always try and keep it simple.
I like it.
Okay.
Thank you, as always. I always enjoy our conversations. You bring a beautiful energy to this work, and I always appreciate it.
I have learned from the best over the years, ma'am. So you keep doing what you're doing. Keep taking those vitamins. The world needs creating the future more than ever.
Thank you.
Okay.
Be well, my friend.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I'm so grateful to Debra for sharing her observations and experience with us. I love the image of a cookie jar filled with values and experience and wisdom and aspirations. With that image, it's easy to see that it's not one thing that creates change, but a combination of all the assets and resources that we all bring to the table. Whether she's talking about meeting people where they physically are, doing their laundry, or sharing resources like the restaurant that opens in the summer to ensure kids are not just fed, but cared for. Everything Debra talks about circles back to building relationships. Having known Debra for over a decade, I can personally attest that it's not unusual to find a note in my email box saying, "It's been a while, let's catch up." That is the culture she has nurtured at the Patterson Foundation, and it is such a huge factor in what it takes to create change, taking slow time to know the people in our communities. Because as we say so often at Creating the Future, it's always about the people, period. You can learn more about Debra's work at the podcast page for this episode. And of course, if this episode got you thinking, we hope you'll share this podcast with your friends and colleagues and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, you can learn more about Creating the Future's work at creatingthefuture.org. Thank you for being with us today and for wanting to create a better future for our world. We'll see you next time here at Creating the Future.